Odecha, ay la 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 rai 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 rai, ay la la rai 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 rai, ay la 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 rai 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 rai, ay la la rai 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 rai. Va'ani eshtachave eveyechra'a, evrecha lifnei Adonai osi. Ay la 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 rai 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 rai, ay la la rai 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 rai, ay la la rai 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 rai, ay la la rai 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 rai. Fa'ani tefilati lecha Adonai, et ratzon Elohim berov chastecha, aneheni be'emet ishecha. Ay la 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 rai 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 rai, ay la la rai 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 rai, ay la la rai 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 rai, ay la la rai 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 rai. We will turn back now to page 11 for the beginning of Kabbalat Shabbat, Psalm 95, Lechu Neranena. Please join me. Lechu neranena, neranena, l'Adonai naria, naria, letzuri sheinu. Lechu neranena, neranena, l'Adonai naria, naria, letzuri sheinu. Nekadama fanav, nekadama fanav, nekadama fanav betoda. Bizmirot, bizmirot, naria lo. Bizmirot, bizmirot, naria lo. Lechu neranena, neranena, l'Adonai naria, naria, letzuri sheinu. Lechu neranena, neranena, l'Adonai naria, naria, letzuri sheinu. Arbaim shana gur bedor va'omar am tuelevavheim v'heim lo yadu derachai asher nishpati v'api im yevu'un el menuchati. Page 13, the beginning of Psalm 96. Shiru l'Adonai shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz, shiru l'Adonai baruchu shemo, basaru meyom leyom yeshuato, zapru v'agoyim kevodo. Bechol ha'amim nifleotav, ki gadol Adonai, umhulal me'od. Dorahu al kol Elohim, ay lai 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 lai. The heavens shall be glad and the earth rejoice, the sea and its fullness roar, the meadows and all that grows in them exult. Even the trees of the forest shall sing praise, as Adonai comes to judge the earth, judging lands with righteousness and peoples with divine truth. Middle of page 14, where the little arrow is pointing inward. Yismechu hashamayim, hashamayim, yismechu hashamayim, hashamayim, yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. Yismechu hashamayim, hashamayim, yismechu hashamayim, hashamayim, yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. Yihiram hayam, yihiram hayam, yihiram hayam, umlo. Yihiram hayam, yihiram hayam, yihiram hayam, umlo. Yismechu hashamayim, hashamayim, yismechu hashamayim, hashamayim, yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. We will continue now on page 20, towards the bottom section of the Hebrew side, again with a little arrow pointing inward. Please sing with me, Romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lehar kodesho. And for anyone who is watching on Facebook or YouTube, if you are able to come and join us on Zoom, or better yet, come and join us in person, we are still short a couple of people to make a minyan, so please come and try to help us if you can. Meanwhile, we will turn to page 21 and continue with Mizmor LeDavid, Psalm 29. Please rise. Mizmor LeDavid, Havul Adonai Bnei Elim, Havul Adonai Kavod Va'oz, Havul Adonai Kevod Shemo, Hishtachavul Adonai Behadrat Kodesh, Kol Adonai al Hamayim, El HaKavod Hirim, Adonai al Mayim Rabim. Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vayishaber Adonai et harzei halvanon. Vayarkidem kemo egel Levanon vesirion kemo ven re'emim. Kol Adonai chotzev lavotesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, yachil Adonai midbar kadesh. Kol Adonai yecholel ayalot, vayechesof yeharot, uvehechalo kulo omer kavod. Adonai lamabul yashav, Vayeshev Adonai melech leolam, Adonai os le'amo yitein, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. And you may be seated. And we will continue now with Lecha Dodi, starting on page 23. We will sing the first two stanzas on 23. We will then sing the middle stanza on 24, and then the final stanza on 25. And when we get to that final stanza, we will rise and face the entrance of the sanctuary. Those who are at home will rise and face the entrance of your home at that time. Because we are in the period between Passover and Shavuot, known as the Omer, the counting of the Omer, there's a special melody that is done for Lecha Dodi each week during this period. Very easy to sing along with. We introduced it last week. So please join me, pages 23 through 25. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmiyanu el hamiyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shem ul'tiferet v'litila, Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor haberacha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof maaseh b'machashava techila, lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Middle of 24. Hitoreri, hitoreri, kiva orech kumi ori, 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 shir daberi. Kevod Adonai alaich nigala, lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Page 25 at the bottom, please rise and face the entrance. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam besimcha uvetzola, toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. You may be seated. We will continue now with the Psalm for Shabbat, Psalm 92, on page 27 at the top. Please join me. Mizmor shir leyom HaShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulezamer leshimcha elyon, ulezamer leshimcha elyon. Mizmor shir leyom HaShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulezamer leshimcha elyon, ulezamer leshimcha elyon. Lehagid baboker chastecha, ve'emunatecha balelot. Alei asor v'alei navel, alei higayon bechinor. Mizmor shir leyom HaShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulezamer leshimcha elyon, ulezamer leshimcha elyon. The righteous flourish like the date palm, thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of Adonai, they flourish in our God's courtyards. Middle of page 28, Tzadikat Amar. Tzadikat Amar yiferach, ke'erez balvanon yizke, shetulim bevet Adonai, bechatzerot Eloheinu yafrichu. Od yenuvun beseva, deshenim vera'ananim yiyu lehagid, Ki yashar Adonai, tzuri tzuri, velo avalat abo. Before we continue with the Mariv service, I just want to share a couple of brief thoughts about this week's Torah reading. First of all, this Shabbat is not only Shabbat, it is also Rosh Chodesh. The first day of Rosh Chodesh was today during the day, and the second day of Rosh Chodesh is tomorrow. So tomorrow, during our service, we will not only have our regular Shabbat service, we will also be doing the Hallel service, which in this case is a half Hallel service, since Rosh Chodesh is not considered a full festival. We will also be reading from two different Torah scrolls tomorrow. The first Torah scroll will have the bulk of our main reading, which comes from a double parsha. And then the second Torah scroll will be the special Maftir Aliyah for Shabbat and Rosh Chodesh. And then, of course, the Haftorah tomorrow is a special one for Rosh Chodesh as well. But I want to focus on the main part of the Torah reading for this week, which is Tazria-Metzora. 3/4 of the time, this double parsha appears as a double parsha, but occasionally, every few years, it appears as separate parshas, and that happens because of leap years in the Jewish calendar. Specifically, Tazria-Metzora focuses on the famous occurrence and instances of a fatal disease that pops up in the Torah. Now, of course, that hits close to home for us right now, being that we live in a COVID type of world, even though we are kind of post-pandemic now. And the Torah refers to the disease as tzara'at in Hebrew, which is often translated or even mistranslated as leprosy. We don't actually know exactly what this disease was and what the exact symptoms were, but the closest thing that we know of, based on what the Torah describes, is leprosy, but it's not exactly leprosy. It's one of those weird things. In the Torah, it says that the priest, the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, is meant to examine, almost medically, a person who suspects that they have this disease. And the Torah specifies that the priest actually has to examine this person and look for the symptoms not once, but actually twice. And that's the part I want to focus on this evening. Why twice? Especially as we know, if leprosy is a skin disease and you can see it, you can see the skin be red and infected and everything like that. Same thing in today's time when you see somebody with chickenpox or measles or something like that. Why would you want to look at it twice? And the answer is very, very simple. You know, there's the famous saying that you check everything multiple times before you actually go to do it. You know, scientists, when they do experiments, they do it more than once before they form their conclusion, before they form their thesis. And it's also the same thing, I'm sure, with artists as well. You check your work more than once before you do a final execution. What? You feel it, you touch it, that's right. The same thing applies here. We want to be extra careful and extra sure that the person who came to the priest indeed has this disease before we have to shun them out of the community. Tomorrow morning I'll be talking about kind of the ramifications of that, both physically and spiritually and emotionally, about what it means to quarantine and what it means to be kind of shunned out of the community because you're sick. And so before a person has to go through that stress and through that trauma of having been separated from the community, we want to be absolutely sure that we have to do that to the person, that we have to, and that we have to diagnose that this person has that disease. And so that's why twice the priest has to check for the symptoms of tzaraat. With that, let us then continue with the Mariv service on page 39a. I invite everyone to please rise as we continue with the Barchu. Baruchu et Adonai Hamevorach. Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Leolam Vaed. You may be seated. Please join me on the English side of 39a for the first blessing after the Baruch. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space, whose word brings the evening dusk, whose wisdom opens the gates of dawn, whose understanding changes the day's division, whose will sets the succession of seasons and arranges the stars in their places in the sky, who creates day and night, whose rolls light before darkness and darkness from light, who makes day pass into night, who distinguishes day from night. Adonai Tsevaot is your name, living and ever-present God. May your rule be with us forever and ever. Baruch atah Adonai, who brings each evening's dusk. Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uvein laila, Adonai Tsevaot shemo, el chai v'kayam tamim lo chaleno leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai, hamariv aravim. Page 40, Ahavat Olam. Please join me. Ahavat Olam. Beit Yisrael, Amecha ahavta, Amecha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shokveinu uvkumeinu nasiach bechukecha v'nismach b'divrei toratecha uv'mitzvotecha le'olam vaed ki heim chayeinu ve'orech yameinu Uvahem nege yomam v'layla, nege yomam v'layla, ve'ahavatecha al tasir, mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael, ohev amo Yisrael. Page 41. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavecha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha ve'hayu hadevarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al levavecha ve'shinantam levanecha ve'dibarta bam Beshivtecha beveitecha, uvelechtecha vaderech, uveshochbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, vehayu letotafot beinenecha, uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha. We'll continue privately with the second and third paragraphs of the Shema, page 42. Adonai Elohechem, top of page 43a. Emet ve'emuna kol zot ve'kayam aleinu, ki hu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'ein zulato, va'anachnu Yisrael amo. God brought Israel from its midst to lasting freedom and led them through the divided water of the Sea of Reeds. As their pursuers and enemies drowned in the depths, God's children beheld the power of the divine. They praised and acknowledged God's name willingly, accepting God's sovereignty. And then Moses, Miriam, and the people of Israel joyfully sang unto you, Who is like you, Adonai, among the mighty? Who is like you, adorned in holiness, revered in praise, working wonders? We'll continue on the top of page 44. ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ובני ישראל לחנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נהדר בקודש נורא תהילות עושה פלא נורא תהילות עושה פלא מלכותך ראו בניך בוקיים לפני משה זה לי אנו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פד אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. We will continue with the Hashkiveinu prayer on page 45. We'll sing the beginning first in Hebrew together, then we will read the prayer in English, and then conclude again in Hebrew. Again, page 45. Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Ushmor tzeiteinu uvoeinu lechaim ulshalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, for you, God, watch over and deliver us. And you, God, are sovereign, merciful, and compassionate. Ensure our going and coming for life and peace, now and forever. May you spread over us your canopy of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, who spreads the canopy of peace over us, over all the people of Israel, and over Jerusalem. Uferos aleinu sukat shalomecha, Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al chol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. We will continue now on page 46 with Vishamru and Chatzi Kadesh. Please rise. Vishameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam ailai beini uvein bnei Yisrael oti le'olam. Ki sheishet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz uvayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash. Yitgadal ve'yitgadash shemei Rabbah בעלמא דברה חירותי והמליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבא מברך לעלמא לעלמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירן בעלמא ואמרו amen. We will continue now with the private silent Amidah, the silent devotion, which begins on page 47 and concludes on page 51. Please remember the insertion for Rosh Chodesh, middle of page 50. If you are still reciting the Amidah, please continue. Please otherwise join me as we sing the seventh blessing of the Amidah, the prayer for peace, on page 51. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et Amecha Yisrael bechol eit uvechol sha'a b'shalomecha. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha, Tasim Leolam, Tasim Leolam, Tasim Leolam. Baruch atah Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. We'll continue now, middle page 54, with the full Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash merabah, be'alma divarach yiruteh v'amlich malchuteh b'chayechon v'yomechon u'v'chayir echol beit Yisrael b'agalav izman karim ve'imeru. Amen. Yehi shemei rabba mevarach le'alam le'al me'al maya yitbarach yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitmam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal shmei dekudesha b'richu le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'imeru. Amen. Titkabal tzalot ahon v'atahon dechol Yisrael kodam avahon nivishmaya v'imeru. Amen. Yehi shlam rabba min shamaya v'chaim alinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imeru. Amen. Ose shalom imromav hu yaseh shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imeru. Amen. And we will continue now with the Shabbat evening Kiddush, which can be found on page 55. We do have some cups here with grape juice and wine. So if anybody wants to come forward, please, you can pour yourself a cup. Hold on one second. I know those who are online, it's hard to see it because of the camera angle, but one of our retaining walls is being used as the new Bnai Israel bar. Okay, and for those who are at home, if you have your wine and grape juice ready, please go ahead and get that now. And we'll continue on page 55. Savarim Manaram Verabaran Verabotai, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher kirishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon inchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'rishit, ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim, ki avanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, ve'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava u'veratzon, inchalutanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha'shabbat. L'chaim. Okay, let's continue with Aleinu on page 56. Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, velo samanu gemishpechot adama, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת, אין עוד. על כן יכבד לך אדוני. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני מלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו echad. At this time, we remember those in our community who are no longer with us. This Shabbat, we remember Anna Macklin, Donald Harvey, Philip Friedman, Robert Katz, Seymour Sudman, Simshon Gershon, and Ray Herman. And if there's anyone else you're remembering this evening, please take a moment to remember them in your mind and in your heart, and may their memory be for goodness and for blessing. We'll continue with Mourner's Kaddish, page 58. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma Divara Kirutei ve'amlich Malchutei, B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Israel, Ba'agala u'v'izman Kariv Imru Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Le'alam Alalmei Almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithalev v'yithalal Shemei D'Kudesha Barichu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata v'Shirata Tushbechata v'Nechamata Da'amiran Be'alma v'Imru Amen. Yehi Shalama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'imromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Yeah, you may be seated. Do you have any announcements? Yeah.
Good Shabbos, everyone. We welcome our guests from Cincinnati and from DC. Okay, great. The only announcement we have is for next week, big doings, the installation of our Chazan, Jonathan Angris. So if you have not made reservations, please do so by Monday. We have events scheduled for Friday, for Saturday, and for Sunday. So there's going to be a musical extravaganza, great food, just a wonderful time, and it's going to be it's kind of a big deal for us here at Bnai Israel. So you're welcome to stay for a couple more days, and you're welcome to stay for a few more days and help celebrate with us. Tomorrow's service starts at 9:30. That's about it, and so good Shabbos.
Okay, wonderful. And after the installation is over, there will be a couple of other smaller events happening in the month of May, which includes our confirmation class, graduation from our religious school, possibly a smaller musical Shabbat, and of course Shavuot, which will be on Memorial Day weekend. So just kind of looking ahead a little bit to that. With that being said, let's conclude this evening with Adon Olam on page 211. And even though I have met some of our out-of-town guests, I haven't met everybody this evening. So afterwards, if I don't know you, please come and introduce yourself. I'd love to meet you and chat. Page 211, Adon Olam. Adon olam asher malach beterem kol yitzir nivra le'et na'asa v'chefso kol azai melech shemo nikra azai melech shemo nikra ve'acharei kichlot hakol Levado yimloch nora vehu haya vehu hove vehu yihye betifara vehu yihye betifara vehu echad ve'ein sheni להמשיל להכבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה ולא העוז והמשרה והוא אלי וחי גואלי וצור חבלי בעת צרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום מקרא מנת כוסי ביום מקרא בידו אבקיד רוחי בעת ישן ועירה ואם רוחי גביעתי אדוני לי ולא יירא אדוני לי ולא יירא. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you for joining us, both in person and online. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Good Shabbos, everyone.
And good Shabbos.